While 2 million men were forced into Vietnam by a draft letter, 11,000 women went for one reason. They chose to. No draft, no obligation, just a decision that someone had to be there for the soldiers who were going to get hurt, and these women decided that someone would be them. America never said thank you. This is Unsaid America. We tell the stories that never made the news. Subscribe and stay with us. 90% of those 11,000 women were nurses, volunteers, every single one. And what they walked into was nothing like a civilian hospital. Rockets hit evacuation units. Nurses worked through incoming fire without stopping. The wounded arrived in numbers no system was built to handle. Young men with catastrophic injuries, arriving faster than the previous ones had been treated. These women made the impossible decisions. Who gets care first? Who has to wait? 12-hour shifts became 16. Days disappeared into each other. And in the moments between emergencies, they sat with the soldiers who were not going to survive. They were the last human contact for some of the 58,000 Americans who died in Vietnam. Not photographed, not broadcast on the nightly news, but there, every single day. Now, here's where the story gets darker. The military kept no official records of these women. No database, no tracking system. 11,000 lives, volunteers who had walked into a war zone by choice, treated as an uncounted footnote by the very government that used them. The number 11,000 is itself an estimate pieced together by researchers decades later, because at the time, nobody in the system thought their presence was worth documenting. That was not carelessness. That was erasure. 8 women are on the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Wall. 7 Army nurses, 1 Air Force nurse. First Lieutenant Sharon Ann Lane was killed when a rocket struck her hospital on June 8, 1969. She had been in Vietnam less than 10 weeks. She was 26 years old. She was from Canton, Ohio. 8 names on 58,000 feet of black granite. And the women who survived came home to nothing. No recognition, no support system built for what they had experienced. The VA had no framework for a woman who had served in a combat zone. PTSD went undiagnosed. Agent Orange exposure went unacknowledged for years. They came home carrying everything they had seen and were expected to be silent about it because the country wanted to move past the war, and these women had to move past it alone. Then they decided to fight for something, a memorial, a physical acknowledgement on the National Mall that women had been in Vietnam too, that they had served, that they had sacrificed, that they deserved to be seen. The government fought them for 10 years, a decade of being told their service did not rise to the level of a monument. They had already survived a war. Now they had to fight a second one just to be remembered. Every argument made against the memorial was a repetition of the same message these women had received their entire service. You were there, but you do not quite count. In 1993, 11 years after the Vietnam Veterans Memorial opened, the Vietnam Women's Memorial was finally dedicated on the National Mall. They won, but they should never have had to fight that battle at all. Here is what this story leaves behind. These women did not wait to be asked. They raised their hands when nobody required it. They went to the worst place the country could send them, and they did the hardest possible version of the work they had trained for. They held the dying. They saved the ones that could be saved. They came home broken and silent and uncounted, and the system that used them spent decades making sure their story stayed quiet. Not a footnote, a full chapter, a necessary and heroic chapter of the Vietnam War that America has spent 50 years almost entirely ignoring. Say their names. Tell someone today, because 11,000 women volunteered for Vietnam and most of America still does not know it. This has been Unsaid America. If this story meant something to you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, because the most important stories are the ones nobody is telling. Subscribe, and we will keep telling them.